And good evening, and welcome to this edition here of the Man of Steel podcast. And as we conclude election night from last night and NFL trade deadline, it's been a very interesting last month. I know I've been unavailable as of late, taking quite a break, worked some other stuff with the podcast. But other than that, here we are. The Steelers right now find themselves atop of the AFC North right now at 6-2. And Russell Wilson has started the last two games, granted, on primetime games on Sunday and Monday Night Football. And once again, I'm Charles Prodigy Richey right here. As you can follow me on X at Metal Steel CGR and on Instagram at Metal Steel Nation. Pittsburgh Steelers right now find themselves in the position right now they haven't felt in a while. They're finally 6-2, which they haven't been since 2017. I mean, you could argue 2018 where they went 7-2-1 and lost uh two out and lost four of the six remaining games and finished up the season 9-6-1 and out of the playoffs. I gotta tell you right now, this season right now definitely starting to feel a little bit of optimism. You're starting to see how the plan came is coming to fruition right now. Mike Tom was still sticking to his guns as far as not naming an official starting quarterback between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. He's maintained it from the start that Russell Wilson was in pole position due to his experience and his body of work. He also had a guy like Justin Fields who managed to stay ready, even when Russell Fields strained his calf back in training camp. And the start that they had, they were off to a 3-0 start, lost their next two games, versus the Colts and the Cowboys, but been able to bounce back pretty soundly. Now, Justin Fields, I mean, you could definitely see like the quarterback solidarity right there. And it's been really interesting right now, too. I mean, just seeing like this past Monday night over a week ago in their last victory over the Giants, and you just saw Russell Wilson wrapping his hands around Justin Fields on the bench right there. And Steelers are just in a much more fresher position. I mean, you go back to when, I mean, like the last 3 years in particular, including Ben Roethlisberger's final season in his career, of his NFL career, albeit with the Steelers, going for the miserable 3 seasons under Matt Canada. Now I really feel like we're starting to see a true offense. I mean, don't forget they're also in pursuit of an extra wide receiver to pair with George Pickens and Van Jefferson and others on this offense. And here we are. I mean, this team is really starting to gel nicely. Defense is still playing solidly. I think the only criticism I could find with the defense is in the pass rush. They're not sacking the quarterback enough. But they got buy one, get one free yesterday. I mean, if you really think about it. I mean, they made two moves, which is pretty much unheard of for this organization. Omar Khan, who insisted when he took the starting job at his opening press conference when he became Steelers GM, they asked him if they're going to be going away from doing things the Steeler way. He did mention that they were looking into those avenues. Yes, they're going to start progressively changing things over time. And he's always insisted from it throughout the off season. I mean, you look at it. I mean, just even like at the end of this past year's Super Bowl, he was still mentioning that they're still trying to do everything they can to make this team a Super Bowl product. Now, many may not believe that, including myself right now. I'm still a skeptic. But I must admit, this is a feeling of football nirvana I think Steeler Nation has been waiting to have in such a long time. 6-2, atop the division. Grant, they still got a long ways to go. They're going to have to play a murderous role of football as we look at the Steelers' remaining schedule right now. We're going to be at least having in their final 9 games. They're going to be at least having 5 of those remaining 9 games on the road. As you look at it, it's going to be against 3 playoff teams in the Browns, Eagles, and Ravens from last year. But I tell you what, right now, I mean, you look at right now coming up with their game coming off their bye. They're going to have to go to Commanders Field to take on Washington and the Commanders right now. Jaden Daniels, who's looking not only for like rookie of the year, a potential league MVP. I mean, Washington, who's still in Maryland right now, formerly a FedEx Field, trying to end right now. I mean, for them, they're trying to end a 34-year drought of not winning the Super Bowl, or 30, 33 years, excuse me. 33 years drought of winning their last Super Bowl. That was done in the 1991 season under Joe Gibbs, and where you saw the then Washington Redskins win 3 Super Bowls in a span of 9 years right there. Now, of course, that wasn't a dynasty right there, but Joe Gibbs did become the very first ever head coach to win a Super Bowl with 3 different quarterbacks in Joe Theismann, Doug Williams, and Mark Rippon. And I mean, you look at like the ownership group right now. I mean, when you look at, I mean, for that franchise who has just demanded nothing but winning, so far they're slowly getting that in their second season under the likes of Josh Harris. Right there, you got Magic Johnson, Dave Blitzer, Magic and David both being limited partners right now, but the main managing partner, Josh Harris, right there, who comes in after taking over the reins from Daniel Snyder, who's definitely had that team, you could argue, regress. But I mean, this is a feeling they haven't had in a long time. There's still people trying to bring the name back to where it was before they changed their name before the Washington football team. I'm not going to get into that. That's a whole nother topic and a whole nother can of worms I will not open up on this podcast. But forgive me for saying the old Washington Redskins reference. I'm just referencing their history time frame. But anyway, nonetheless, they are clicking at all cylinders right now. I mean, Washington right now, just like the Steelers, at the top of their division at 7-2. Granted, only by a half game. I mean, they played one more game than the Eagles. Unbeaten in their division, 5-1 record in the NFC. You look at the Steelers on their way right now in the AFC. They're 6-2 right now, top of their division by a half game, playing one less game than the Baltimore Ravens. But what they got going in their favor right now versus the Ravens, as you take a look at, they own at least 2 of the 3 tiebreakers so far in common games. They're 4-1, and they're 4-1 in the AFC. Ravens are 4-3, while they are 3-3 in the AFC. I mean, you gotta really think about it right now. I mean, what the Steelers did, these moves right now, according right now, let's go ahead and recap it right now. Starting off, I mean, with Mike Williams right now. I mean, they've been a team that was hell bent on a mission to get an additional receiver to pair up with this group as we look at it. Okay, so sorry for all the back and forth, everybody. I do apologize for that, as we are just having a little technical difficulties here, but we are going to roll on here as best we can throughout this podcast. But like I said right now, I mean, both teams at the top of the division right now. I mean, you look at it with Steelers trying to find an additional wide receiver to pair with, as I mentioned at the start of this podcast right here for the Steelers. I mean, you look at it, they're trying to get someone to pair behind George Pickens, Van Jefferson, of course, Calvin Austin. And they tried getting it for Brandon Ayuk. Of course, the 49ers asking price was a little bit too high. The Steelers usually don't give a significant amount of draft capital for anybody or yet paying an arm and a leg for someone if they don't have to. They could give them at a bargain price, which they have been doing. And for some reason, I mean, they had like opportunities. I mean, which ended up Brandon Ayuk, for example. He ended up re-signing with the 49ers right now. I mean, to begin the season, one of the highest paid receiver contracts in the NFL right now. Who, by the way, who got injured season. They're going for he's going to be ruled out for the May of the season after tearing his MCL. And then, of course, there was whispers about them. Could they bring in a guy like Devontae Adams or even like Darius Slayton from the Giants? I mean, of course, Devontae Adams was pretty much inevitable that they were going to see him reunited with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets or Derek Carr and the Raiders. But I mean, you saw their connection right there in their time in Green Bay together right there. I mean, going into that time that Aaron Rodgers had the affinity for a guy like Devontae Adams and what they did during their time in Green Bay. I mean, prior to coming in here, I mean, you saw it. They had at least 76 career touchdowns thrown together between the two during their time with the Packers, 68 in the regular season, 8 in the playoffs. He is with the Jets right now. And of course, you saw, I mean, that mess right there with the Jets, Jets. And right now teetering on the brink of survival right now, where their season could be done at any moment. They find themselves in the 10th seed at 3-6 at this point. Not a lot of room for errors right now. They're 2 games out of the final wild card spot, which they lost to by the Denver Broncos. So make that 3 since losing the head to head. So they have to finish a game ahead of them. And so, I mean, you look at the mess right there. I mean, you had Garrett Wilson on there, who's being a young, hungry lion, being paired with Devontae Adams. You would think that he would be the guy that helped, like, be a leadership assistant leader to Aaron Rodgers, a voice in that team, who definitely was addressing like a lot of like the mess they had in that organization was being acquired. But Mike Williams, there was a little bit of frustration being called out, like on the Monday night game versus the Bills, and you know, Aaron Rodgers insisted he liked Mike Williams, but he definitely felt like a change of scenery was good for him. And Mike Williams, who definitely took the brunt like of the criticism, he responded, and this was coming from Andrew Philip Hoyer, 937 The Fan, uh, saying Russell Wilson, he's a leader on and off the field. Very thankful to have a guy like that, a leader. I mean, definitely throwing Rodgers on the bus from between the lines on those times. Well, who could blame him? I mean, we used to think we used to have that under Ben Roethlisberger when he was there. I mean, doesn't that story sound like a little bit familiar right there? Where 6 years ago, about that point in time, where I mentioned, I mean, they're one of their 6-2 starts. In this point, they were 7-2-1. I mean, one of the last few seasons, the last 2 seasons where they had a tie in their win loss record, uh, what ended up happening? I mean, he was on 937 The Fan. He was like talking about how Antonio Brown was running wrong route or whatever. I mean, they started slipping up when they lost in Denver, going on to lose versus the Chargers on Sunday night, blowing a 16-point lead, I want to say, in that game, then losing to the Raiders in Oakland before they won against the Patriots and the Bengals finished out the season. But of course, in a pivotal Week 16 game, a key loss, which forced them to win and need help in the week of the finale, they missed out on the playoffs. They're out. Well, anyway, I mean, you look at it right there. They barely get away from the Houston Texans this Thursday night football. Garrett Wilson, I think, has to make the catch of the year. If not, I mean, it has to rival. I don't know where anyone stands. If that's like a top OBJ's catch a long time ago on prime time, but that wasn't going to last long. That was definitely a name that was in pursuit. For the dealers for the deal, the Steelers did send the Jets a fifth round pick, as confirmed by Am Schefter and Jerry Dulac per sources. He'll cost the Steelers, according to Jerry, more than $2 million this season. I mean, which is pretty good. This is a guy right now. You look at a guy like Williams right now, who's definitely got like a little bit of a depot threat. Would come in where the way Wilson is performing. I mean, you consider when the Steelers were a broken collarbone away from training for Christian Kirk last week, Devontae Adams, of course, as I just mentioned, who just rejoined Aaron Rodgers, and Ayuk returning to the 49ers before the season. Williams looks pretty good. I mean, when you really think about it, I mean, this guy who definitely like makes some key grabs up the middle. He's at 6'4" and really can make a contributing guy for an offense. He's really starting to get his rhythm. I mean, back to back 400 yards of offense right now. I mean, one has that. I mean, it just sounds refreshing right now for this team at this point in the season. A year ago, we're having a lot of fans saying fire Canada at the start of the season. He didn't even make it for the Thanksgiving holiday. His last game as offensive coordinator was after they lost to the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland. Only have Mike Sullivan and the running backs coach, I mean, be the assistant offensive coordinators the rest of the way. Now, Kenny Pickett did eventually get hurt. He was pretty much out for the remainder of the season. Ended up finishing up with a good familiar friend and Mason Rudolph, who played cleanup in that role behind a good running game. I mean, the running game just continues to look better than ever. I mean, right now we haven't seen it in a while. I mean, we're just seeing Najee Harris run with a lot more confidence. I mean, this year for a guy who didn't get his fifth year option. I mean, but still, I mean, look at Najee right now. I mean, at this point in his career right now, I mean, he has got like on the ground 592 yards halfway for the season. He's given his best yards per game at 74 yards and yards per attempt 4.4, career best so far right now. And he's amassing 744 yards of scrimmage right now. So he's been able to catch the ball too for 152 yards off the being targeted 24 times, catching 17 of those targets. I mean, he has been ridiculously good. Of course, with Jalen Warren, but I mean, just Najee Harris. I mean, oh, he's slimmed down this all season. It's paying off right now. Just let's just wait and see. I feel a little optimistic. Hopefully, we're not getting ready to say goodbye to him when he's got to hit free agency. I mean, you look at the moves that Omar Khan is making versus what Kevin Colbert did. Now, granted, Kevin Colbert has been to three Super Bowls. Him and his squad has won two of them with two separate coaches. But I mean, there has been something that's needed to change. And the thing is, the Steelers, they continue to find a way to still stick to their guns and making these bargain price moves. I mean, it's always going to be a respectable formula to like not go into like your 401k because you put yourself in debt in a car accident, and or you just want to mortgage your future because you want like a sound bar or whatever it is. Steelers, they just don't do that often. I mean, they continue to find themselves in a position where it's like they're just hanging around. And you can't really say right now, I mean, if this team is going to be that's the team that wants to play spoilers for anybody. They're right now bringing their poker face to the bargaining table and trying to be serious players in this game. Now, the only concern I have, I mean, for a guy like Mike Tomlin in his coaching career, aside from getting some playoff victories, I'm still going to maintain until I see it in the playoffs. Great regular season defense, terrible postseason defense since their last playoff win. These are the facts. On the flip side, I mean, the way this team is being assembled, way the chemistry is going, the moves that they made, not having to give up a whole lot right now. This may be Mike Tomlin's last opportunity in a while. If he doesn't get it done with this group, I'm not sure if he's going to win another Super Bowl, to tell you the truth. I think, if anything, he'll still be playoff relevant, makes some deep playoff runs, but I think he has to do it now with this group. We got Cam Hayward, of course. I mean, he signed his extension back in the offseason, got a new deal. I mean, he is back the Walter Payton Man of the Year. You got guys like TJ Watt right here. I mean, got his money a few years ago. I mean, time is slowly like ticking on them for this defense. And they know that. And then you look at like what they did for insurance policy too. I mean, as far as like they got an edge rusher, which is one thing I was thinking in the back of my mind. You know, if they couldn't get a receiver, I was hoping to get someone on defense, a run stopper or an edge guy, or a little bit of both right now. And with success right now, the Steelers they want depth at outside linebacker after injuries to Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, and Darvin Leal. They acquired Preston Smith from the Packers for a 2025 fourth round pick. Now Smith has big salary cap numbers next season at 13.4 million and 14.1 million, but his contract will be renegotiated after the season if he isn't released. Highsmith has missed time with a groin injury, and Herbig has been out with a month with a hamstring injury. Watt has been fully healthy, but is on pace for a career high in snaps. So, I mean, they definitely like did real good. And we can share the upcoming teams right now. Slate of football, they got to come out of the gate right now. The game with Washington and the Commanders, and then being at home versus the Ravens. And then you look at the rest of the season right there. I mean, let's just go back and look. Like I mentioned right now, I mean, this season is going to be a murderous row, but they usually find a way to play their best. Then they got to go back-to-back games in Ohio, on the Browns on a short week on Thursday Night Football. And then at Cincinnati on Sunday, first game of December, home against the Browns. Then they got to go on the road back-to-back versus the Eagles, at Ravens, Chiefs on Christmas, and then the Bengals, which is still to be determined. So I tell you what, for right now, I think Omar Khan and this front office right now, with Art Rooney putting his stamp of approval, this team right now is stacked. I think stacked well enough. The excuses are no more. They've got to find a way to punch through in the playoffs. I mean, you got everything clicking. I mean, just the fan base is feeling it right now. I mean, just even like I think when they snap out of your losing streak against the Raiders, you follow that up with back-to-back wins versus Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. Now, granted, Aaron Rodgers has not been nearly the same guy since coming off his torn ACL from a year ago. But I mean, he's a guy who's going to be 40 in a month, and they took advantage of a team who was just in disarray, firing their head coach during the season, and Robert Saleh, demoted their offensive coordinator, Aaron Rodgers' guy, and you give him pretty much keys to the castle right now, bringing his guy, Devontae Adams, and here we are. And then take advantage versus the Giants. Now, they weren't all that impressive versus Giants, I'll tell you that, on Monday night. But for the most part, they have been handling their business. And right now, these next two games are definitely, boy, I tell you, it's going to be a real heavy dose of like, this is where we separate the men from the boys. 60-minute football for each of these games right here. And let's see. I mean, they got the 12th best odds according to ESPN bet at 30-1 plus 225 to win the division while finishing up at around 10.5 wins or more. I mean, which is pretty encouraging. I could definitely see right now. I mean, if they can just handle business right now, I think these first two games, especially beginning with the Commanders right now, is going to really tell about how their season is. I'm definitely in the belief. I side with Ben Roethlisberger right now. You got to like pump the brakes a little bit. 6-2 is nice. You still got a way to go. You cannot lose focus right here. This season could go off track like how it did that 2018 season. There's been many times where they started off hot and they just fell apart. Not so much under Mike Tomlin, but historically as a franchise, it has happened. And I think what you gotta just do, you just gotta keep the accountability going, keep the focus going. Mike Tomlin's been here quite a few times. This is a team, no excuse not to be in the postseason. Yellow to at least be minimal in the divisional round AFC Championship game, possibly knocking on the door of a Super Bowl. At least minimal be in the divisional round. This team is built to win now. Stick to their guns, and we'll see what happens. And that's going to do it for this episode's return edition here of the Meta Steel podcast. Once again, you can check me out on X at Meta Steel CGR and on Instagram at Meta Steel Nation. And like I said, this is we got Veterans Day coming up here. Wearing my salute to service hoodie right here, just ordered. And I just want to just continue to thank all the men and women who make the ultimate sacrifice, commitment, and dedication for our country to keep our country in good standing, keeping us safe. And for all the veterans coming up, well, I wish you a happy and a safe upcoming Veterans Day. That's going to do it for the wrap up here on this here, the Meta Steel podcast. As always, leave it. Don't be trolling, be rolling. There we go, serious. Here we go.
This has been our story all year, hadn't it, man? 60 minutes. It's never going to be pretty. Throw style points out the window, but these guys will fight to the end. And I take my hat off to you, and I congratulate every last one of you.
Thank you for watching the Meta Steel podcast with your host, Charles Prez Richey, here on YouTube. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button. And for all the latest Meta Steel podcast episodes, feel free to download them on Mixcloud, Anchor.fm, and SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts.